There's something that's truly enjoyable and relaxing about building Legos, and I mean, a lot of people get quite frustrated. Hey, okay, there we go. So this is the project I intend to work on, and as you can tell, I am a bit of a McLaren F1 fan. Can I own or drive a McLaren Senna? No, it's quite a pricey car. I don't even remember what the price of these is. £1 million, £2 million. The best track car that you can buy for your money. Also, the cutest little Lego kit that you'll ever find. I've been saving this as kind of a collector item for myself, but I'll tell you what, today is going to be the best day to dive into it and build my little McLaren Senna. So, the McLaren Senna is 219 pieces, and for 7+-year-olds, I believe I fall into the 7+ category. Who's to say? That's good there. I don't want to rip this box. There's a spot for my thumb. Let's lay it out here. Box is still in one piece, so that's a good sign. Ooh, stickers, look at that. That's what makes you go fast. Oh, look at that, carbon fiber chassis. An interesting thing right off the bat about the LEGO Champions Senna, or LEGO Speed Champions, they have a Forza Horizon 4 edition that actually allows you, or gives you, this exact car in LEGO form. So they have it in regular form that you can drive in the game. They actually have the LEGO car that you can drive. So they have the real car, they have the LEGO car. What better fantasy than to actually sit in the LEGO car that you build, but also pretend to drive the real car. And that really is, sorry if it's loud on the mic here, driving simulated vehicles and dreaming is what it's all about. Very few people get to actually drive these cars in real life and get to, you know, see what they're actually like and own them and live with them. And it's almost better to have the nostalgia and never meet your heroes in some way, because it's a lot easier, right? You're ignorant to the bliss. It's kind of like the horsepower thing. Anyone who's ever modified a car or buys a car to be more and more powerful. Oh yeah, I forgot this thing comes with a wind tunnel. That looks like a rim. Oh, that's slick. It actually looks like it has a brake rotor in there. So, ooh, tires. Oh, sick. Lego cars usually have like those old knobby little tires. These actually have like some little treads and stuff like that. They're definitely not Pirellis or Michelins. So, oh no! We've got a random head. Well, he looks pretty happy, but again, he'll be driving either way, be driving a McLaren Senna, so you can't go too wrong with that. Ah, we've got the top of a body. Well, I got sidetracked here. I believe steering wheel.
Steering wheel, somebody tell him to give it to me. Come on, move!
I was talking about the chase for horsepower, and it doesn't matter who you are. If you try and buy more powerful cars, every time you get a new car, you try to be more powerful, or if you modify cars, you are constantly looking for a more powerful car to drive. That's kind of tough. You're ever chasing that, and I was told that that would happen to me with my BMW, and it has. I've considered supercharging it even further to try and get a smaller pulley, but the fastest thing that you can do is to be a better driver. Improving yourself more so than improving your car will actually yield results, because you've got to learn how to control a car to lower speed with lower power, and once you build up, you can start to drive faster cars and handle them better. That's the best way to be fast. Not everyone does it that way, not everyone enjoys doing it that way, but that's how it should be done. Look at all racing drivers who generally start with karting, and once they start with karting, they eventually graduate to, you know, smaller cars or smaller formula cars, and then go from there. Oh, look at that. They have a little figurine that's supposed to be meat building. Figurine's not wearing a McLaren F1 shirt, I'll tell you that. The book doesn't want to stay closed. Best way to keep it closed is with a knife. There's something that's cathartic, is that the right word? There's something that's truly enjoyable and relaxing about building Legos, and I mean, a lot of people get quite frustrated. It's on the floor. I think it's more an exercise in patience. You know, the imaginative side of it is really building a car just how you prefer, and maybe you can wing it, but if you're going to build one of these types of models, I do believe that the best thing to do is actually just go by the instructions. Did I screw this up already? Maybe. It's interesting how Legos have progressed with regards to the shapes that they do. It's interesting that they can achieve certain curves and lines, even though the majority of it is pretty much right angled and not smooth and very bricky. I mean, in essence, Legos are bricks. The ability for them to make cars and planes and just all sorts of sets that are actually quite relevant to the shape in real life is pretty cool. So the McLaren Senna is actually named after Ayrton Senna, who was a famous race car driver in the 80s and early 90s. And he died, unfortunately, in a very harrowing accident. The thing is they were really chasing safety, and there's a couple of different theories as to why something happened with his car. I read recently in the Adrian Newey book, How to Build a Car by Adrian Newey. I definitely recommend it. It's a great read, especially if you like a bit of racing and engineering, and it's well told. Basically, Senna's death may have actually come down to the steering column and the actual diameter of the steering shaft, the ability of the suspension and steering to be able to take the pressure and force. The thing is, it was inconclusive and it may not have been the cause, but again, it was one of the things they look into. They went to court over it. A very negative thing, but a good read. And I mean, it's a shame because everyone thinks that Senna died too young, and I mean, there's no good time for that stuff. So Senna is a great driver, and I'm gonna just show you another great read here. This is Senna versus Prost. These guys were teammates, but they also were fantastic drivers and a lot of good battle both on and off the track. Senna just had this amazing talent to be able to drive a car to the limit. I'm going to put a link in the top section here with his lap around Monaco, and just to see how on edge it was.
The circuit for me was a tunnel, which I was just going, and I realized I was well beyond my conscious understanding.
Senna talks about having some sort of otherworldly experience with regards to driving at that point, and I think that's the only way to describe sometimes what he did, but he might have just been so in tune that he checked out and was only driving the car in the moment. This Senna is now named after him. So that's why the Senna exists. Oh, there's the helmet visor for my little buddy here. Oh, that's funny. Okay, so I have my other Lego guy here, and he's got a tinted visor, but there's a clear visor. I might switch those out at one point. I can't see it off camera, but I have my helmets, and they all have different visors as well, just depending on the sun and conditions and whatnot. I was never really a big fan of how the Senna looked. I don't think a lot of people are. The Senna is, in essence, not a beautiful car. It was not meant to be beautiful. The Senna was meant to be fast. Hold on, I need to use my brute strength, apparently. A 7-year-old would be able to push it on, so can I. I did it. Cars these days are now built to be efficient with regards to airflow underneath the car. The car can be a lot more attractive when you're managing the airflow under the car and maximizing that effect of the venturi and the diffuser and a flat bottom. That way you don't have to have a giant wing out the back. And that's kind of where modern hypercars are going. I love that the wind tunnel is this well thought out. It gives me happiness. That was the easiest part of the build. We'll see what happens next. Like I said, it's about maximizing the aerodynamic efficiency, and I've talked about that with a couple of the cars I reviewed and what they're all about. Cars can get really ugly when you're starting to put, vortices and stuff. Some of the parts that they have in this Lego kit I have never seen molded before, and it always surprised me when they come up with a unique Lego brick just for their certain scenario. Why on earth they chose beige axles is beyond me. Hey, why would the helmet be in a separate pack? There are beige parts, and I don't understand why there are beige parts. Keep all the orange ones together. This truly does bring me back to childhood, because I did play with a lot of Legos, and I love to make my own stuff. I wonder how much of this works off of photographic memory. Oh, I remember that I put this part here earlier, therefore my brain will go back to where this part was. Step 3 of 73. Holy smokes. I feel like if you were an engineer, this is kind of what building a car is like. And I mean, I'm not trying to short sell building a car, but it really is. Engineering teams work on different parts of a car. An engineer very rarely designs the whole car. You design the suspension, or you design the aerodynamics, and you have to comply with what the designer says or what the marketing's trying to achieve. And it's many people working on a car. I believe that's why cars are not as romantic as they used to be. Hitting a target market is all well and good for certain things, but you have to imagine that there are people, even if they're not interested in driving, they have more aesthetic interest or maybe design interest. There are a lot of senses involved. You've got your hearing, you've got your smell. A lot of people like the new car smell. This doesn't really smell like anything. I expect it to smell like plastic. It doesn't even smell like that. The way cars sound, or people like really quiet cars, tactile feel of certain buttons. people really get into the experience of their cars and what it's like to drive. Even if you don't enjoy a car, you can enjoy certain aspects of it, and people forget that. I feel like manufacturers are chasing down a lot of standard items now to make their cars more attractive. Why not have all the options that if I want to have better seats and pay a little more, I can option that. Just because you want a better spec, you get a better engine. Well, what if you want a base spec but a better engine, or a better spec but a lesser engine? So with autonomy becoming more prevalent, they're really starting to look towards the comfort of a car. Your living room becomes your car. Why doesn't anyone throw a pillow in the back of the car? At this point, I want to comment how strongly this is built. I love when it's built like that. That's the kind of overbuilding that I used to love to do when I was younger. In case, maybe a younger person, a kid or someone's like actually using this, like, I'm driving it. The difference between doing this as an adult and as a child is that you may think you're actually slightly better at doing this, but also you're going to respect this when it's done. And you're like, hey, I put work into this, so you're not just going to go out and destroy it. Interesting that they've actually provided a height difference, at least from what I can tell, where the axles are going to line up. Maybe not. When the front of a car is lower than the back, that's the rake angle. Interesting fact that for Red Bull Formula 1 cars, rake is actually how they prefer to run their setup. With more rake, they can actually affect the airflow underneath the car to provide it a faster movement and thus more suction to the ground. Oh, interesting. There's a lovely stack of color right there of orange, white, orange, and gray. And it is literally all covered up by beige. So that's a thing. So these stickers are of the vents, the side pod vents, which take air into the rear. So I mentioned before about the collectibleness of things that are going to be worth more in the future. I've got a good friend who has a dashboard for a Honda Civic that is worth thousands of dollars when in actuality the part's only worth a couple hundred when it was new, or anyway, it was worth less. If you've got a part that is rare and somebody wants it, it's a collectible item. Collectibles, just like comics or figurines, that holds true with any type of hobby that you've got, is just worth something to someone because they either have a emotional connection to it or they thoroughly enjoy the hunt of finding these parts. The whole point is that they enjoy what they're doing, and it's not necessarily the monetary value of it. The unfortunate part about people collecting and paying for certain parts, more premium money or whatever, is that those that also enjoy the hobby or enjoy what they're collecting miss out because maybe they can't afford to pay for certain parts. It drives up the price of certain things, which makes it less enjoyable, which makes things more rare, which drives the market price up again. Everyone's just trying to enjoy what they love. Oh wow, okay. Why would they do that like that? How do you become a championship driver? I am not a championship driver by any means, but I have read some books and I'm studying what the thought process is, what the physicalness is, what's the relationship between being a championship driver and not. So this is Daly's book, Race to Win. It's really about how to become a champion and the mindset of a champion and what you got to do. So let me tell you that the majority of it is physicality. You've got to be strong. It doesn't matter who you are, what you are, you've got to be strong. You've got to be able to endure. Any sport, you have to have a higher physical fitness than the person you're competing against. Okay, I found a delicate part now on the car, and that is definitely the headlights. The other thing is I've noticed the mentality of many championship drivers and how they're all arrogant. I think it takes a certain level of arrogance to believe that you are the best. You take that belief that you are the best into your actions. I feel like in racing, nice guys actually finish last. Danny Ricciardo, the Formula 1 driver, is a perfect example of that. A great personality, a great driver. I don't think he's got the aggressiveness that can make him a champion. He's got the talent, he's got the physicality, but I don't think he's got that aggression that makes him a champion. Does he deserve to be a champion? Yeah, anyone who works hard deserves to be champion. It doesn't mean that you're going to be a champion. I'm missing something. This is where we're at so far. It's different but similar to how the actual car is. You can tell it's obviously the Senna. This almost looks cooler. I don't know why they call it a cockpit. That's a terrible name. Did you know that if you spend the money on buying a Rolls Royce, they actually 3D print stuff now? Like if you want to 3D print your DNA, I believe in gold, or they just gold dip it or plate it afterwards, you can actually get your DNA put into the dash of the car or different other art pieces like porcelain sculptures and stuff like that. That is pretty cool. There's a lot of pieces in the kit that make it smooth so that you don't see the nubs of the car. I guess that's for the Lego Dynamics. Get it? Aerodynamics, Lego Dynamics. I know, I'm a too much talent. So one neat thing about the McLaren Senna is that it has clear doors. The thing is that on the Lego kit, I couldn't tell if it had the clear doors. And I can say that yes, it does, which is so cool. This is wild how they're doing this. I was wondering how they were going to achieve the clear doors. Oh, it rests perfectly. Like, wow, that's actually really cool. So this piece, even though it doesn't hook into anything, actually just rests in the spot that it's supposed to be where the doors would be. So that is freaking cool. So I feel like this sticker is actually covering up a majority. So that's supposed to be the door and the clear door. They're actually covering up a really large portion of the clear part of the door. But I feel like unless you're looking for it, you're not going to know it's there. Does that cover part of the vents? Why would you cover the vents? The vents are the coolest part. So they're doing a lot of this where a sticker will be partially clear and then have like a little strip of orange on it or a strip of gray or whatever. That's neat that they're doing that just to get the color scheme in of the car. If you're rich and you're buying a Senna, you can have any color you want. It's like walking into Home Depot and being like, you know, I want this color of, like, I want to get paint to paint my living room the same color as my dog, and you give them a dog hair and they'll do it. You know, McLaren will be like, okay, what color do you want this car? And they'll guide you. They don't want you to make an ugly car, but they'll be like, okay, what color do you want? And you'll be like, I want it to be the color of my girlfriend's eyes. And they'll do it because, you know, money. Oh yeah, the exhausts. So here's a cool thing to talk about. You're seeing more and more exhausts being invented from the top part or the direct rear part of a bumper of a car. And the thing is that never used to be as legal. I don't know how on earth it's sliding by now. Good example. The Ariel Atom was a car that was never sold in Canada many years ago. I don't know about now. And I came across a guy who was driving one once many years ago, and I said, well, how did you legalize this? He said the hardest part about legalizing was that the exhaust was basically where there was no rear bumper, but it was the rear part of the car. So you could just walk along beside this car, lean up to it, and burn yourself if the muffler was hot. Okay, if you're drinking hot coffee, expect it to be hot. So if you go near a muffler that was on a running car, it'll be hot. There are definitely more creative spots where they're venting exhausts on cars for, again, efficiency of aerodynamics. Moving along. So the Ariel Atom was a car that was meant to be for driving. It was meant to be for enjoyment, less about aerodynamics, and it kind of broke the mold. Then it became quite famous of like, oh my gosh, you know, here's this light car that's really fun to drive, and a very simple principle. And this Senna is again like that, except it's super aerodynamic and takes advantage of everything it can for max downforce, and not meant to be pretty, it's meant to be cool and fast. This is going to be the spoiler. I get it now. That's freaking cool. Yes, and it's got end plates for the spoiler. That's where the Senna stickers will go. That's another thing. Every driver kind of has their brand. I don't know if you've noticed that. This is the Milk for Coffee brand. Senna has his little S. Danny Ricciardo's got a logo. Nico Rosberg, you know, he won one championship and then he was like, I'm out. And he still manages to do a lot of cool stuff, and he's got his YouTube channel, which I definitely suggest checking out. He does do some pretty cool stuff. But again, he's got a brand. He's got the Nico brand, and I think that's part of it as well. You've got merch and all the rest of it. Almost on the floor. Putting that sticker on too forcefully. So we're at the point now where we're doing the taillights, which, you know, I was worried these things are a little dainty. I'm sure they'll pop off easily, but nonetheless, they are pretty cool little bits, and they're floating, which I was wondering how they were going to do, and here's how they do them. And they go in one. I guess they know that you're going to lose these parts because they actually give you a spare taillight, or at least in my set there was a spare taillight. How does that go? We're going to cover up the beige bit, which makes me very happy because I didn't like the beige bit, and bam! You can see there is the taillights, the diffuser. If you're going to do something to change the looks of your car and performance, get wheels and tires. Whoop. So yeah, tires are important. There are lots of different ways to choose wheels. Choose what you like. Bigger rims make for smaller tires, which makes wheel gap look larger, so be aware of that. Oh, slick. There are two choices of wheels, multi-spoke or 5-spoke. We are going to do one side 5-spoke, one side multi-spoke. You let me know down in the comments what you like better. That is that. The car is built. We can take our mechanic here. Boom. Tinted visor on the McLaren guy because he means business, even though the canopy is tinted. Our guy is in, who is actually sponsored by Pirelli, even though the tires don't say Pirelli. Got the wind tunnel testing. Thanks for spending time with me as I built this Lego McLaren Senna. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. Leave some comments down below. Again, I'd love to know if you like the 5-spoke or multi-spoke wheels. Remember, All gas, no brakes.